The ground trembled beneath Captain Mark Lawson's boots as he crouched behind a jagged rock formation, the air heavy with the acrid smell of scorched earth. He signaled for silence with a clenched fist, his squad obeying instantly. They weren't on Earth anymore. That much had been clear the moment the disorienting flash of light had yanked them from Fort Bragg's training grounds. Now they were stranded on an alien world that seemed designed to test their limits. The skies above pulsed with a sickly green glow, and the distant cries of unknown creatures sent shivers down every spine. Dr. Emily Carter adjusted her grip on the makeshift spear she'd fashioned from a sharp fragment of alien metal. The biologist's khaki field jacket, once pristine, was now smeared with mud and blood. "That sound," she whispered, barely audible. "It's too regular, almost mechanical." Mark nodded grimly. "They're toying with us, trying to flush us out." Before anyone could respond, a piercing screech erupted from the foliage, followed by the unmistakable rumble of something large tearing through the dense, alien vegetation. Mark signaled again, this time pointing toward a narrow ridge that offered cover. The group moved quickly but silently, their boots crunching on the strange, glass-like ground. Private Sam Tucker, the youngest among them, struggled to steady his breathing. His rifle, salvaged from the wreckage of their abduction, trembled in his hands. "What the hell are those things?" he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. "Focus, Tucker," snapped Sergeant Jason Morales, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Whatever they are, they bleed, just like anything else. Remember that." The creature emerged before Tucker could muster a reply, towering over them. It was a nightmarish blend of sinew and metallic plating, its four glowing eyes scanning the terrain with predatory intent. It let out a guttural roar, revealing rows of serrated teeth. Mark didn't hesitate. "Engage!" Gunfire erupted, the sharp cracks of human rifles contrasting with the alien screeches of the beast. Emily hurled her spear with surprising precision, striking one of the creature's eyes and causing it to rear back in pain. Morales fired a concentrated burst, aiming for the exposed joints in its armor. The beast lunged forward, swiping with claws that left deep gouges in the rock. Tucker froze, his finger hovering uselessly over the trigger. Seeing the boy's paralysis, Mark shoved him aside, narrowly dodging the creature's claws. "Get it together, Tucker," he barked, firing a shot that ricocheted harmlessly off the beast's armor. Emily scrambled to retrieve another weapon as Morales shouted, "Aim for the soft spots." It took a coordinated effort, but the group finally brought the creature down. Tucker, pale and shaking, delivered the final shot, a clean hit to its throat that sent it collapsing in a heap. For a moment, silence reigned, broken only by their ragged breaths. Emily knelt beside the carcass, her hands already probing its wounds. "This isn't just a predator," she said, her voice tinged with both fascination and horror. "It's engineered. Look at these implants. Biotech. Someone made this." "Yeah," Mark muttered, scanning the horizon. "And I bet they're watching us right now." The group retreated to a nearby cave, a jagged maw in the rock that provided temporary shelter. Morales rigged up a perimeter alarm using wires salvaged from the remains of an alien drone they'd destroyed earlier. Emily sat cross-legged near the fire, her hands deftly weaving a makeshift net from the sinews of the fallen creature. "Why would anyone go to all this trouble just to hunt us?" Tucker asked, his voice cracking. "Because they don't see us as people," Emily replied, not looking up. "To them, we're just prey. Sport. They think we're too weak, too primitive to fight back." "They're wrong," Mark said firmly. His tone left no room for argument. "We're going to make them regret every second of this." The captain's confidence was contagious, but the group knew the odds were stacked against them. The landscape alone was a constant reminder of their vulnerability. The plants seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy, and the air itself felt hostile, thick, and metallic. Morales crouched near the cave entrance, adjusting his jury-rigged alarm system. "This place isn't just a random planet," he said, his brow furrowed. It's a damn arena. Look at the terrain. Everything's designed to funnel us into kill zones. Whoever these bastards are, they've done this before. Good, Mark replied. That means they're predictable. The firelight flickered across their faces as the group fell into a tense silence. Each of them was grappling with the reality of their situation in their own way. Tucker sat with his head in his hands, the weight of his earlier hesitation clearly gnawing at him. Morales continued tinkering with his gadgets, his movements methodical and precise. Emily broke the silence. These creatures, they rely on fear. They want us panicked, disorganized. She held up the net she crafted, but they underestimate us. We adapt. We learn. Mark grinned, a rare glimmer of hope in his otherwise stoic demeanor. Exactly. And tomorrow, we show them what humans are capable of. As if on cue, the alarm buzzed softly, a low, insistent hum that sent adrenaline surging through their veins. Morales motioned for silence, his hand hovering over the makeshift detonator he'd set up. A shadow passed over the cave entrance, accompanied by the faint hum of alien machinery. Mark raised his rifle, his fingers steady on the trigger. The others followed suit, their weapons trained on the doorway. The first alien stepped into view, its armor gleaming in the dim light. It moved with a predator's grace, its weapon drawn and ready. But it didn't expect the tripwire Morales had hidden just inside the entrance. The explosion was deafening in the enclosed space, and the alien was thrown backward, its body crumpling against the cave wall. Before its companions could react, Mark and the others opened fire, their shots precise and deadly. The skirmish was over in seconds. As the smoke cleared, the group stood among the bodies of their would-be hunters, their chests heaving with exertion. Emily knelt beside one of the fallen aliens, her eyes narrowing as she examined its weapon. "We can use this," she said, a note of determination in her voice. Mark nodded. "We're not just surviving anymore," he said. "We're fighting back." The group exchanged grim but resolute looks. The Vardak might have seen them as prey, but they'd just made a fatal miscalculation. Humanity wasn't weak. Humanity wasn't helpless. And humanity wasn't done. The cave had become more than just a shelter. It was a fortress in the making. Captain Mark Lawson stood at its entrance, scanning the alien horizon. The dense, pulsating jungle stretched as far as the eye could see, interrupted only by jagged rock formations and the occasional flash of something metallic in the distance. He clenched his fists, the memory of Earth, and everything they'd lost fueling his resolve. Behind him, the others worked tirelessly. Sergeant Jason Morales hunched over a salvaged alien drone, its sleek, segmented body cracked open to reveal a maze of circuitry and glowing blue filaments. He muttered to himself as his hands moved with practiced precision, stripping the alien tech for anything useful. "This thing's running on some kind of bioelectric system," Morales said, holding up a writhing, jellyfish-like component that pulsed faintly in his grip. "Half machine, half organic. These bastards aren't just advanced. They're practically merging with their tech." Dr. Emily Carter leaned over his shoulder, her curiosity piqued. "That's not just technology, it's symbiosis. If we can figure out how to disrupt the connection, it might give us an edge." Mark turned toward them. "Whatever it takes. We're not playing defense anymore. We need to hit them where it hurts." Morales smirked, tossing the jellyfish organ aside. "Give me a few hours. I'll rig something they won't see coming." Nearby, Private Sam Tucker practiced with one of the alien rifles they'd taken from the previous night's ambush. Its sleek, obsidian design felt unnatural in his hands, but he was determined to master it. He took aim at a makeshift target, a chunk of alien plating propped against the cave wall, and fired. The rifle emitted a high-pitched whine, sending a searing bolt of energy that narrowly missed the target and scorched the rock behind it. "Focus, Tucker," Mark barked, his tone sharp but not unkind. Tucker gritted his teeth, adjusting his stance. "I'm trying, sir. This thing doesn't shoot like anything I've used before." "Good," Mark replied. That means they won't expect it. When we use it against them, Emily stepped back from the disassembled drone, her gaze drifting to the jungle beyond. She'd been cataloging the alien flora and fauna, searching for anything that could be weaponized or turned to their advantage. Her eyes lingered on a vine-like plant with spiked, bioluminescent pods hanging low to the ground. "I think I found something useful," she said, crouching beside the plant. She gently pried one of the pods loose, careful not to rupture it. The pod throbbed in her hands, emitting a faint, rhythmic glow. Morales glanced over. "That thing looks like it wants to explode." "Exactly," Emily replied. "Its chemical structure suggests it's highly reactive to kinetic force. We could use it to create traps or even grenades." Mark knelt beside her, examining the plant. "How fast can you harvest these?" Emily frowned. "Fast enough, but they're unstable. One wrong move, and they'll blow before we're ready." "Then we'll handle them carefully," Mark said, standing. "Gather as many as you can. We'll need them." As the group worked, a sense of purpose began to replace the fear that had gripped them since their arrival. The cave echoed with the sounds of invention, the hum of alien tech being repurposed, the crack of rifle fire as Tucker's aim steadily improved, and the rustle of harvested plants being stored in secure containers. Hours later, Morales emerged from his makeshift workshop holding a small, box-like device. Wires snaked out of it, and its surface pulsed faintly with blue light. "What's that?" Tucker asked, eyeing the device warily. Morales grinned. "A little surprise for our friends. This baby hijacks their bioelectric signals and scrambles them. Should give their drones and sensors a real headache." Mark clapped him on the shoulder. "Good work. We'll test it tomorrow. For now, get some rest." We move at first light. The night passed uneventfully, but tension hung heavy in the air. Each member of the group knew they were no longer just surviving. They were preparing for war. At dawn, they ventured into the jungle, their movements precise and coordinated. Emily carried a satchel filled with the explosive pods, while Morales had his scrambler device strapped to his back. Tucker and Mark took point, their alien rifles at the ready. Their target was an alien patrol route Morales had identified from the drone's recovered data. The patrols followed a predictable path, one that took them through a narrow ravine lined with jagged rocks. It was the perfect place for an ambush. Mark signaled for the group to stop as they reached the edge of the ravine. He scanned the area with binoculars, spotting the faint shimmer of an alien energy shield flickering in the distance. "They're coming," he said, his voice low. "Get into position." Emily and Morales worked quickly, planting the explosive pods along the ravine walls. The pods glowed faintly, their light barely visible against the jungle's bioluminescent backdrop. Meanwhile, Tucker and Mark took cover behind a cluster of rocks, their weapons trained on the path ahead. The Vardak patrol appeared moments later, moving with mechanical precision. There were 4 of them, each clad in sleek, armored suits that seemed to ripple with energy. They carried weapons that looked as much a part of their bodies as their limbs, their movements eerily fluid. Morales activated the scrambler. The device emitted a low hum, and the effect was immediate. The Vardak soldiers paused mid-step, their heads jerking as if in confusion. One of them raised a hand to its helmet, the glowing visor flickering erratically. Mark didn't wait for them to recover. "Now!" he shouted. Emily triggered the first set of pods, sending a cascade of explosions down the ravine walls. Shards of rock and alien metal rained down, catching the Vardak in a deadly crossfire. Tucker fired his rifle, the energy bolt striking one soldier square in the chest and sending it sprawling. The remaining Vardak recovered quickly, their weapons spinning to life with a high-pitched whine. One of them fired a volley of plasma rounds, forcing Mark and Tucker to dive for cover. Morales flanked them, using the distraction to lob another explosive pod. It struck the lead soldier, detonating with a blinding flash. When the smoke cleared, only one Vardak remained, its armor scorched and its movements sluggish. Mark rose from cover, his rifle aimed steadily at the alien. "End it," he ordered, his voice cold. Tucker hesitated for only a moment before pulling the trigger. The last Vardak crumpled, its body twitching before falling still. The group stood in silence for a moment, the weight of their victory sinking in. Emily knelt beside one of the fallen aliens, inspecting its weapon. "They're not invincible," she said, her voice firm. "We can beat them." Mark nodded. This was just the first step. Next time, we hit them harder. As the group began gathering supplies from the fallen soldiers, the faint sound of alien machinery echoed in the distance. The Vardak would come looking for their missing patrol, and when they did, they'd find a force far more dangerous than they'd anticipated. Humanity wasn't just surviving anymore. They were adapting, learning, and preparing to strike back. The captured Vardak outpost loomed in the distance, its angular towers shimmering beneath the alien sky. To the untrained eye, it looked impenetrable, with energy shields crackling like a living bear and sentry drones patrolling its perimeter. To Captain Mark Lawson, it was an opportunity. "This is the heart of their operations on this planet," he said, crouching beside his team atop a ridge overlooking the base. His voice was low, his tone unyielding. "We take this, and we don't just survive. We win." Sergeant Jason Morales adjusted the alien gauntlet he'd salvaged from a previous skirmish. The device hummed faintly as he calibrated it, its interface a chaotic blend of pulsating light and alien script. "Their shields run on a repeating energy cycle. If I time it right, this thing can short them out long enough for us to breach." Dr. Emily Carter peered through binoculars, her keen eyes scanning for weak points in the base's defenses. She'd been silent for much of their march to the ridge, but now she spoke with quiet determination. "Those shield emitters are mounted high, but the supports are organic. If we plant explosive pods there, it'll destabilize the entire structure." Mark nodded, already forming a plan in his head. "Good. Morales, you handle the shield disruption. Emily, set those charges. Tucker and I will cover you and draw their fire. Everyone knows their role." Private Sam Tucker gave a stiff nod, his face pale but resolute. The timid soldier who had hesitated in their first fight was gone, replaced by someone who understood the stakes. "I'm ready, sir," he said, gripping his alien rifle tightly. The team descended the ridge with practiced precision, their movements silent and calculated. The jungle around them buzzed with the sounds of life, but the oppressive energy of the Vardak's presence muted even nature's rhythm. Every step brought them closer to the looming base, and every second felt like a countdown to chaos. They reached the edge of the shield's perimeter without incident. The energy barrier crackled faintly, a translucent wall of force that distorted the landscape beyond. Morales crouched beside a console embedded in the ground, his salvage gauntlet already interfacing with its alien counterpart. "Give me a minute," he muttered, sweat beading on his brow as he worked. Emily wasted no time, slipping through the undergrowth toward the shield emitters. She moved like a shadow, her satchel of explosive pods swinging lightly at her side. Mark and Tucker took up positions nearby, their weapons trained on the patrolling drones. The first drone appeared moments later, its sleek body hovering effortlessly above the ground. Mark raised a hand, signaling Tucker to hold fire. He waited until the drone turned its back before firing a single precise shot. The bolt struck the drone's core, and it crumpled to the ground without a sound. Morales grinned as the shield flickered, a brief pulse of static rippling across its surface. "Almost there," he said, his fingers flying over the gauntlet's controls. Emily reached the first emitter and planted an explosive pod at its base. The organic structure pulsed faintly as if aware of her intrusion, but she moved quickly, securing the charge before sprinting to the next target. The base began to stir. Lights flickered along its walls, and an alarm blared, its piercing tone cutting through the jungle. Mark cursed under his breath. "They're onto us." "Tucker, cover Emily." "Morales, how much longer?" 30 seconds, Morales replied, his voice tense. Tucker fired at an approaching patrol of Vardak soldiers, his shots precise and controlled. One soldier fell, its armor sparking as it hit the ground. The others returned fire, their plasma bolts sizzling through the air. Mark stepped into the fray, his rifle blazing. He moved with calculated aggression, drawing the enemy's attention away from Emily, who was now planting her final charge. A bolt grazed his shoulder, the searing pain barely registering as adrenaline took over. The shield suddenly collapsed, its shimmering barrier dissipating with a burst of light. Morales shouted triumphantly, "We're in!" Emily detonated the charges. The emitters exploded in a chain reaction, sending debris raining down as the base's defenses crumbled. The team surged forward, taking advantage of the chaos. Inside the base, the air was thick with the scent of burning metal and ozone. The Vardak were scrambling, their forces disoriented by the sudden assault. Mark led the charge, his team moving as one. They fought with relentless precision, each member playing to their strengths. Morales hacked into the base's systems, disabling automated defenses and opening pathways. Emily used her knowledge of the Vardak's biotech to sabotage their equipment, turning their own tools against them. Tucker, despite his inexperience, held his ground, his aim steady as he provided cover fire. The central command room was their goal. Reaching it meant not only crippling the Vardak's operations on the planet, but also gaining access to their network, intel that could turn the tide of the larger conflict. They burst into the room, finding it guarded by a single Vardak commander. It stood taller than its subordinates, its armor more intricate, and its weaponry more advanced. Mark didn't hesitate. He charged, firing as he moved. The commander deflected the shots with a shimmering energy shield, its movements unnervingly fast. Tucker flanked it, firing at its exposed side. The commander spun, its plasma weapon charging, but Emily threw one of her explosive pods, the resulting blast staggering the alien. Morales took the opportunity to jam his gauntlet into the command console. "I just need a few seconds," he shouted. The commander recovered quickly, its weapon aimed directly at Morales. Mark stepped between them, his rifle empty but his resolve unshaken. He drew his combat knife, lunging at the alien with a ferocity that surprised even himself. The blade found a gap in the armor, and the commander let out a guttural roar, its weapon firing wildly as it fell. Mark rolled to the side, bloody but alive. "Got it," Morales yelled as the console's lights flickered and the base's system shut down. The team didn't wait to celebrate. They grabbed the data Morales had extracted and made their way out, the base collapsing around them as Emily's sabotage reached its peak. Outside, the jungle was alive with fire and chaos. The Vardak reinforcements arrived too late, their ships hovering uselessly over the ruins of their once imposing outpost. The team regrouped on the ridge, battered but victorious. Mark held up the data drive Morales had retrieved, a grim smile on his face. "This is the beginning of the end for them," he said. Emily nodded, her eyes blazing with determination. "We're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're taking the fight to them." As the alien ships retreated, the team watched in silence. They were no longer prey. They were predators. And the Vardak would learn that humanity was a force to be reckoned with.